let's talk about Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, the latest animated series from Netflix which breathes new life into Bryan Lee O'Malley's graphic novel series. I'm going to share my honest thoughts and feelings on this 8-episode first season, and I'd love to hear what you thought of it below. This video will contain spoilers, and please check out the links below to the Horror Exchange for more content and merch. But first, let's set up some context. The original Scott Pilgrim graphic novels ran from 2004 to 2010 in 6 volumes. In 2010, we got a live-action adaptation with Edgar Wright's Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which was met with mostly positive reviews. However, I do think there were some flaws in relation to some of the characters there that I'll expand on when discussing this new animated series. There's quite a good chance that many people watching this series have seen the film before or read the graphic novels before, or perhaps both. But the way that episode 1 plays out here might have caught just about everyone off guard. This is because the majority of the first episode plays out just how Scott Pilgrim vs. the World plays out, and in terms of the novels, it plays out just like Scott Pilgrim's precious little life. For me, it brought back some great memories of the film in particular, with the little touches syncing up nicely. There were just so many things here that threw me back to watching the movie in the cinema when it first came out. And when it comes to Scott finally doing battle with the first evil ex of the girl in his dreams, Ramona Flowers, you might expect this series to just be an energetic, eye-popping remix of the film and graphic novels. However, when Scott loses the first fight against Matthew Patel, something which doesn't happen in the novels or the film, that's the moment where this series took a sharp left turn. There was this genuine shock moment here that this series is going to carve a different path altogether and be fresh to both fans of the film, fans of the novel, and fans of both. There are so many updates here that I thought were welcome for this retelling of the Scott Pilgrim story, despite some of them having pros and cons. Let's kick off with Scott and Ramona. Now, a little earlier I said that the film had some character flaws, and it's Scott and Ramona who I'm referring to there. I never found the chemistry between them to be all that enthralling. It seemed really jagged, and that neither of them had genuine feelings for each other. There was this abrasive awkwardness to them, so I was unable to truly believe that these sparks between them were real. However, in Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, I think they did a much better job at making Scott and Ramona not only more likeable in themselves, but likeable when together, to the point where I actually did care about them. Not only did I think they were improved, I think that the show even highlighted some of their character flaws in a self-aware fashion. These people aren't perfect, they're not shiny and sparkly, they make mistakes and silly decisions because they're only human, and I thought that the show did a lovely job at shining light on those issues, acknowledging them for the better. I think it's a huge help that the voice cast here is the original movie cast returning to play their characters again, which was an inspired touch, and I'm delighted even the big hitters like Chris Evans, Brie Larson, Anna Kendrick and Kieran Culkin were able to return, plus a bunch of cameos including Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. It's clear that the cast are still passionate about the film, but this time they've had all this time since playing those characters. The critical arrows have been fired into the film for over a decade, and the fact the film's director Edgar Wright returns to executive produce the show is a big help too. I think that everyone involved from the original film has had enough time to digest feedback from the film, think about their performance, and improve on those critiques, like having a second shot after a practice run, only this time adding the distinct drawing of O'Malley into the equation. And I must say that style has been brought to life brilliantly by studio Science Saru. So yeah, the animation tying into the graphic novels looks fantastic. The main characters are much stronger this time round, with Michael Cera and Mary Elizabeth Winstead feeling more sincere with their vocal portrayals. It's a solid start. But what about the overall story? Well, you may have a preconceived notion in your head that every single episode is going to be crash bang wallop moving at sonic speed, because that's how the film played out. But the film was less than 2 hours long, compressing the entire 6 volumes into it. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off takes time. This is down to the major plot thread shift of Scott going missing after fighting Matthew Patel, presumed dead, and so begins an investigation by Ramona to try and find Scott. Now, I do have my admirations and my reservations about this whole concept. I'll start with what I liked. The show turned into like a murder mystery series almost, with Ramona going around around questioning people, trying to find evidence of what happened to Scott, so it put quite a lot of focus on Ramona and allowed her to develop some more other than just being the girl Scott likes. And because Scott isn't around taking out the evil exes, it means we get to spend more time with them too, getting a sense of who they are as people and expanding on their personalities, seeing in some cases, like Roxy Richter, what their relationship with Ramona was like and what impact it had on them when it ended. It goes deeper than, I just used to date her, now I'm evil and I'm gonna stop you dating her. It goes layers beneath to explore those relationships a little more, and I thought that was a great choice. This kind of development may slow the pace down, but down the line in future seasons there'll be a much greater understanding and care for the exes when Scott comes face to face with them, which appears to be what they're setting up at the end of the season. However, the issues I had with Scott going missing is that he's missing for almost 5 whole episodes in this 8-episode series, meaning the main character is absent for the majority. He goes missing at the end of episode 1 and doesn't reappear until the end of 6. Scott is the main character, the bloody show's named after him, and yet he felt like a side character in his own series. Ramona was the real star here, but even characters like Patel and Lucas Lee get more screen time than Scott. Same with Wallace, with Knives. Christ, even young Neil is close competition. Because of this, it did kind of make the whole trying to find Scott thing drag on. If he'd have been missing for, I don't know, maybe 2 episodes, 3 at a push, it would have allowed the series to flow a tad smoother to me. It's not unbearable by any means, but it did warrant some foot tapping in places from me. There's also some parts to Scott's supposed death that I found to be hilarious too. Like, it's not meant to be the real world, this. It's a heightened arcade game reality. But equally, I found it funny that Scott died in the fight and had his funeral all set up and arranged, yet Ramona takes one quick look at the CCTV and sees Scott didn't die. Come on, like, a music venue has a death on site and nobody checks the footage to verify what happened? Nope, call the funeral directors. Of course, I'm just jesting here, but yeah, that stuck out to me for some reason and made me chuckle. Of course, Scott's disappearance is revealed to be his own doing, a future version of himself being responsible, and this was a great twist in the tale for me. Essentially, Scott tries to warn his younger self what will happen if you chase Ramona. It'll be bad for you and you need to keep away. That made for a thorn on the branch here. Just how much does Scott love Ramona? Is it worth the risk of getting hurt in the future if what they have together is worth it? That was a pretty cool move, that the big bad of the series is himself and not Gideon Graves, even though it's shaping up for Gideon to take the reins in future seasons. I even loved how Gideon was treated here. We go into so much more backstory than we previously saw in the film version. We see when he was at high school, exploring his real name being Gordon Goose, how he faked confidence but rejection broke him, and then we get the twist of being knocked off the pedestal of running the League of Evil Exes by Patel, despite Graves being the founder, who we never saw until the end of volume 3 in the novels. Here he's present early on, which was a nice change of direction for him. Another thing I've got to discuss is how many sick references are plugged into this thing. There's your standard video game references that are part and parcel, like Sex Bomb and Clash at Demon Head, but there were a couple more clever gags here that I thoroughly enjoyed. In the film being made about Scott's life, the director on the film slate is Edgar Wrong. Fantastic. And another personal favourite of mine was changing up the use of Amazon, being who Ramona works for, to Netflix, so we get a nostalgic throwback to the Netflix DVD delivery service. Even though it's Amazon in both the film and novel, this changeover to freshen the gag up was welcome to me. There's bags of stuff in this series though, pop culture references galore, so please share your favourite below. Overall, I enjoyed this one, though I do believe that the pacing here and there is a bit off, and I definitely think that Scott shouldn't have been as absent as he was. This was still a lot of fun. I appreciated the new narrative direction, all the voice cast were wonderful and clearly had a lot of fun, especially with their characters having much more meat on their bones in this installment. The animation was stunning, like, it's not totally fluid, it's got this rigidness to it with a lower frame rate akin to arcade style animation, which fits so well with the visual source material. Scott Pilgrim takes off, gets a 1-up from me. Thanks for watching this honest review. I'm Connor from Unleash the Ghouls, and I'll see you soon for another. Cheers out.